morning show here on Arise News. Some of members of the 9th National Assembly have since last week been spoiling for a fight. The objects of their anger being what they see as Senate President Ahmed Lawal's insensitive reaction to the call for restructuring made by governors of the 17 southern states after their meeting in Asaba, Delta State. A growing number of the lawmakers have also apparently run out of patience with President Muhammadu Buhari's perceived mishandling of the war against terror in Nigeria. They're calling for the impeachment of both men. Lawal for that over-the-top reaction on restructuring, and Buhari for his perceivably failing to protect Nigerian lives and property from bandits and other non-state actors. What does Mr. President's party, the All Progressives Congress, bucket list have on restructuring? And is President Buhari effectively becoming a lame duck or being diminished by this public perception of cluelessness? For greater insight on all of these, we're now being joined from Arise Abuja studio by Dr. Daniel Bwala, a lawyer and member of the All Progressives Congress. Dr. Bwala is also consultant to the Deputy Senate President on Constitution Review. Welcome to the program, Dr. Bwala. Good morning.
Thank you, Todun, and thank you, Dr. Abati and Mr. Rufai.
Thank you so much. Good morning. It's good to see you again. Very quickly, let's take your comments on the meeting held by 17 governors of the southern states of Nigeria on May 11. And they came up with a 12-point communique. Some of the issues they raised have been highlighted in the introduction by Tundu, namely restructuring, call for national dialogue, review of the revenue allocation formula, ban on open grazing in the southern parts of the country, cooperation among the 17 states, support from the federal government to put in place a ranching system, and so on and so forth. What's your take? Will you say this was an important contribution, or will you say that it was an act of rebellion, particularly on the part of the APC governors that attended the meeting against their party, the ruling party, your party, the APC?
Well, thank you for having me. The communique or declaration, as people have now come to refer the meeting, in Asaba, they call it Asaba Declaration, is controversial. The reason I say it's controversial is because there are 3 points that can best be compartmentalized. If they had compartmentalized them, they would have channeled those declarations to the relevant people. For example, the bit that has to do with the executive is the call for national dialogue. And I don't think the call for national dialogue is bad. At any given time where there is insecurity, anybody or group of persons in Nigeria can always make the call. The only thing that can be done is to look into the credibility of that call, whether or not it is genuine or whether or not it is backed by ill faith. There are parts that should have been channeled to the National Assembly. More than 75% of their declaration are matters that should be channeled to the National Assembly because they are matters to be tackled by lawmaking process under a democratic setting. Fortunately, 90% of what they are calling for, apart from national dialogue, are all captured in the present constitutional review process. Restructuring, devolution of power, state creation, creation of police, and all that. So the proper thing would have been for the southern governors, because if you times the 3 senators in a state times the number of states you have in the southern Nigeria, you see the sizable number of senators, and then you bring it down to the the House of Rep, then that tells you the influence that the southern governors have, and they would have called their lawmakers to say, go in this constitutional review process, this is our point, rather than channeling it to the president, because by law, the president does not have power to create police. He doesn't have power to devolve power to the state. He doesn't have power under the framework of the Constitution. It is to be done by an act of the National Assembly through constitutional review. Just like they can, by themselves, send a proposal or memoranda, the executive can also as well send a memoranda or send an executive bill to the National Assembly. There are parts also that are their own, but they are channeling it to the president. For example, the ban on open grazing is to be carried out by the respective states who feel concerned, and they are to do that in conjunction with the overriding powers of the Constitution. so that whatever law that is created should not be inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution. So it is within their right to not only say it, but to enact the law and to go ahead and enforce the law. So what I find in the summit is a coming together of individuals to mumble up things that have to do with themselves, the National Assembly, the executive, and even the part that deals with the Nigerian people. And they all move it up to the president and ask him to summon for such a meeting. So let us break down those issues. For example, restructuring. It is intriguing to me, quite surprising, that people are asking for restructuring. We have commenced restructuring already in the country. When you hear the independence of the judiciary and the legislators, this financial autonomy, it is fiscal restructuring in every sense and in every dictionary. Restructuring, because part of the confusion is that people will tell you the reason why we don't understand restructuring is because it means different things to different people. But there are areas that we know restructuring, there is a meeting point. Independence of the organs of government is part of restructuring. Autonomy of the organs and branches of government is part of restructuring. Obedience to the rule of law is part of restructuring. So the entire gamut of restructuring, however you define it, in whatever way or sense, must be consistent with promoting democratic ideals in the society. So here is the point. And this is not just to the southern governors, but all governors in Nigeria. You recall my last outing here, I told you about the power of the governors. President Goodluck Jonathan corroborated my point a few days ago when he said, the governors do not know that the greater part of responsibility that helps in piloting Nigeria to a good path lies with the states, because they constitute the greater number of the populace, greater number of power and control. Now, let's come back to insecurity in the country as the reason why there is a meeting in different parts of the country and call for restructuring, call for devolution of power. Those who say it is lack of devolution of power or the lack of devolution of power or restructuring is the reason for insecurity might be right, but are greatly wrong. And let me give you the point. The insecurity problem in the country touches on the three organs of government: the federal government, the state government, and the local government. Unfortunately, there is no local government in existence and operation as it stands in Nigeria. They are just rubber stamps. Some local government chairmen, as soon as they are paid their money, an aide to a governor gets the alert, and then he notifies the governor, then they tell the local government chairman what to do with the money. On an average, in Nigeria today, a governor receives or dispenses or in their what is it called, in their appropriation, they set aside on an average 500 to 1 billion as a security vote. If you go to the security infrastructure of the state, whether police, DSS, or the army, and ask how much these state executive governors are giving to them to fight crime and criminality, you will be shocked, Dr. Ruben, that less than 5 to 7% of what is purportedly said to be voted for security vote is actually used to fight insecurity. And these crimes are committed in local government. The crimes are committed in state. When you talk of the federal, Abuja is the only federal capital. And if you look at the landmass, 93% of the entirety of the government of the federation lies in those states. So have we probed them to say, if 500 million in any state is used honestly, transparently, and decisively to fight insecurity, there will not be insecurity in Nigeria today. Now let's take it further to independence. The people at local level complain to you that they do not find justice. They do not find equity. They do not find freedom. Where are they complaining? In the state. Which court will determine their right? Those courts are not even functioning at the moment, because what is earmarked to them by the Constitution cannot be given to them in a democratic setting. And this is where I even blame the president. Because if you remember, the last time we were here, we said the president must not be cowed in to the pressure of the governors. This last month would have been the ample time for the Accountant General of the Federation to remove the money and send to all the states that the state government refused to give the respective organs. Now, 1 month plus, judiciary is on strike. If you catch a criminal now, which court are you going to prosecute him? Critical infrastructure of government is dying every day, And most of the responsibility lies in the state. And governors are meeting to deflect the attention to the federal government. Now, here is the blame of the federal government. I have said, and it bears repeating, that the president, in my view, if you recall, Dr. Abati, that last year I did an op-ed where I talked about the need for the president to be a presiding president, not just to release money, but to superintend on the government of the federation. Look at intelligence failure in the country. If you look at the Terrorism and Prevention Act, a greater portion of the fight against terrorism lies in the office of the National Security Advisor. Then administration of the prosecution of terrorism lies in the office of the Attorney General. And then investigation, detection, and prevention lies with all the security apparatus of government. Most of the crimes that we see today, we hear they happen in places in Nigeria, happen without the knowledge of individuals and critical institutions of government in the state. The Terrorism Prevention Act even defines a terrorist as somebody who operates within Nigeria or outside Nigeria. And we hear report how people from outside of the country incite people in Nigeria to commit crime. Yet you ask yourself, where is the National Intelligence Agency of the country?
Where indeed,
in America, they even went ahead to...
Dr. Bwala, from the foregoing, I'm pretty sure I know where your thoughts are headed here, but I'll ask you anyway, since you're here. The Senate President, effectively, in his response to what you referred to as the Asaba Declaration, said restructuring begins at home, and implicit there was an allegation, perhaps, of hypocrisy on the part of the governors, and it's caused an uproar in some quarters, and there's some calling for his impeachment. Your comments?
The impeachment is dead on arrival because there is a provision on the offenses that will qualify a lawmaker from being impeached. But assuming without considering that they come under the blanket word that they lost confidence in him, you need to know the constitution of the senators there. That's one. Number two, what is the ground for the impeachment? What he said. What he said, is it a fair comment? Is it justifiable in the circumstance? I do not, and I have not heard anybody say anything outside of the framework of what you just said now, which is that the governors in their